Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining the Meraki Quarterly. Today is the 29th of October. This session would be basically our quarterly review of the Meraki business unit. Live from Sydney in Australia here. This is our APJC session. There has been a global one 2 weeks ago, but this is our own APJC session. Today on the panel, I've got 4 people joining in. Myself, my name is Peter Stefan. I manage the SE team, the sales engineering team at Meraki ANZ. I've got James McKee as well, who's the lead systems engineer, also on Australia. He's based in Melbourne himself, but he's right next to me here in Sydney. I've got Fadi as well and Valerie on the panelist side. They're both SEs on our team. They will be covering questions for yourself, so please feel free to submit your questions through the chat box. Depending on timing, we might also be covering some questions later on today. But really appreciate you joining. We've got a lot of people on the WebEx, so please stay tuned. We're just going to cover a quick background about the Meraki Quarterly. What is the Quarterly? It is basically an initiative that we took at Meraki. As you know, being a cloud provider like Meraki, things change pretty quickly with our products, with our directions, with a lot of things we do on the market today. So we want to make sure we all communicate all the changes that we do as much as we can, and also to keep our customers, our partners up to speed and up to where we're working on what we're working on. So this session is presented by the Meraki Systems Engineering team across APJC. It is targeted for our APJC DEAR region, and it's targeted at established Meraki customers and partners. So we have a range of people joining in from our customer base, and our partners. Very important about this session is that we will be looking back to the last 3 months of Meraki. This is not looking forwards. We are going to cover everything that Meraki introduced, kind of recap of what we did and what we worked on. We'd be really keen to hear your feedback as well about some of the things we will be covering today. So use the chat box in WebEx or through WebEx to submit feedback, submit questions. So before we get started, number one, will this webinar be recorded? It is already recorded. The global one is recorded, but for APJC, we're also going to have this session recorded and uploaded on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe to our channel and just watch the recording or share the recording if you have people who might be interested, or you think people are interested in listening in. If you have questions, once again, just submit them in the chat box. We have two of our most senior engineers just sitting in the back answering. We'll try and share as much information as we can. Otherwise, please, refer to your Cisco, team or the Cisco Meraki sales team. Third one, does this webinar offer free AP? Well, we've got customers and partners on this, and hopefully you are all familiar with Meraki. So this session will not have, a free AP, but there's a lot of other webinars that you can join and get free AP from. So please stay tuned. Please join as many webinars and as many communication channels from Meraki as you can. All right, what are we covering today? So number one, we'll cover Cisco SD-WAN and security, which is a major area of focus for Cisco in general, and also for the Cisco Meraki business unit specifically. So we'll cover some of the updates on the product, but also how the product has been seen in the market and some of the recognition as well from analysts. The second one, Meraki Insight, which is another product of Cisco Meraki business unit. It's basically application analytics and performance analytics that runs on top of our SD-WAN product line. We're also going to cover some of the most established technologies that we have at Meraki, our wireless technology. So we'll do a quick recap of what we've been up to on the wireless side of things. Then Mr. James is going to cover with us clouds and APIs. He's by far, one of our most skilled on APIs. So he's going to have a very entertaining session on APIs and clouds. And we're also going to cover Meraki Unboxed. Then we'll go into MV, Meraki Vision on the smart cameras. Then we'll be back to me on Systems Manager. And we will do the recapping of the session with some of the incentives and some of the programs at Meraki. So please stay tuned. The session is expected to run, from somewhere from 30 minutes to 50 minutes, depending on, depending on how we go with timing. And we're going to have time towards the end for questions, or if we have time, we'll cover questions as well. First topic, SD-WAN, MXs with myself. All right, so as we said, software-defined WAN is one of the most, the topics that of most interest in the market today. Cisco is pretty focused on SD-WAN, just like a lot of our customers and partners. And there's been a lot of recognition with Cisco SD-WAN in the marketplace. So Cisco SD-WAN is our product, Cisco's product to the market. We offer it in two flavors. As you see, we have almost 50% market share. And as you can expect from a vendor as big as Cisco, we owe our customers to offer different flavors of the technology or different routes or different ways of customers to consume our technology. So we have, Cisco SD-WAN powered by Meraki and Cisco SD-WAN powered by Viptela. It's up to our customers and partners to consume the best solution for themselves. So what have we been up to? Very proud to see IDC recognizing Cisco SD-WAN in the leaders on the SD-WAN product report. Meraki MX specifically has been called out as a strength. MX as a product is quite appealing due to the cloud nature, due to programmability and APIs, and the massive, appeal of the product to manage at scale. The product appeals so well to customers in, distributed organizations looking for ease of deployment and maintenance. We run proprietary auto VPN and SD-WAN to simplify site-to-site VPN deployments when using only Meraki devices. Now, in terms of market, as we covered, we got about 50% market share. For the rest of the market is quite fragmented. No other vendor with greater than 10% share. So we're really proud at Cisco to actually provide solutions that could cater for 50% of customers out there who are looking for an SD-WAN solution. Moving on, so I'm going to share some case stories or customer stories. This is close to home. This is in New Zealand, vehicle testing in New Zealand. This is a live customer of ours, founded in 1994. It is the largest vehicle inspection company in New Zealand. About 1,200 employees, 150 locations, 1 million inspection a year. This is exactly an example of customers who could benefit from Meraki Cloud and Meraki programmability. 150 locations. Of course, it's going to be difficult to manage 150 locations, keep them up to speed, keep the management, intact, and really know exactly what's happening across these locations. So some of the typical challenges you find with these deployments: one, lack of visibility into network and issues, large scale and fast transacting operations without reliable connectivity, increased demand for cloud applications, exactly what we're seeing across, most of our customer base. And then really, if you look at all these challenges and multiply that by 150 locations, it is a big job. And this is a big testimony of, cloud and what the cloud can offer for our customers, cloud management specifically. So what did SD-WAN present to VTNZ? So site-to-site VPN template-based configuration obviously makes, a lot of sense for managing 150 sites at scale. Connecting each branch securely with few clicks, multiple WAN links for diverse connections. And as you can expect, some of these sites, or most of these sites have diverse types of connections. So of course, you're going to have a platform, or you're going to need a platform that could cover the different needs from a WAN connectivity. All branches are centrally managed with consistent setup. And the result, which we're very proud of, eased heavy traffic to headquarters. You're offloading traffic off your site quicker and faster and closer than actually needing to send all that traffic back to headquarters. Costly MPLS links replaced with broadband and fiber, along with 4G. And our favorite out of everything, IT team is really being placed ahead, closer to the business than just doing some CLI and GUI that we all as network engineers love to do. But the closer we get to the business, obviously, the more benefit everyone gets. And the summary of this, so a customer was able to get 20 times more bandwidth with 20 times less or 20% lower cost. So it's great outcome for the customer, great outcome for everybody. We're very proud of this. If you want any further deep dives or any true deep dives in SD-WAN, please refer to the Meraki team. Now, what are we doing on our security side of the MX? As you know, MX is one of those products. It's a great product with different sides to it. There is the SD-WAN side, which is quite significant, but there's also our security nature, or the security nature of the product. So we are introducing firewall objects. Most of you might be familiar with objects, but we are allowing this next level of flexibility for our customers to manage their firewall lists in a more scalable manner. So we'll allow customers to define objects and object groups and then also attach, a true policy leveraging these objects and really manage that at scale and help you manage it in a more consistent way, or a consistent way in an easier fashion. All right, we'll move on to Meraki Insight. So we are introducing VoIP Health. So Meraki Insight, our beloved application monitoring and performance auditing on SD-WAN. It is an add-on feature today, an add-on product on SD-WAN, our SD-WAN, Meraki SD-WAN. We've been doing application performance analytics. We've done also WAN uplink health. We are introducing VoIP Health, and that's mainly to help our customers and partners managing, voice quality and VoIP application quality across, the diverse WANs that they have in a more scalable and in a central location. So as you see here, the view of the dashboard is very similar to WAN Health across the different times. What I really like about this is that if you look under the network names, the same site is listed multiple times. And as you see, there's different VoIP providers for the same site. And that just, takes the monitoring side to the next level, where not only are we showing you, for instance, if WebEx calling works at any particular site, but we're also analyzing what type of, what component of that provider is working at what level. So you can see firmware management, it is at, an MOS of a 4.1, device configuration of 4.2, but we really split them down into all the subsequent, or all the components in that provider, to help you understand where any issues could be, but hopefully no issues at all. And then we give you a report on MOS, loss, latency, and jitter across everything. So you can really have a better predictability of, how well your network or your sites work from a voice application standpoint. Expanding on that, not only are we analyzing the provider, but we're also analyzing the path for every site. So what we're demonstrating here is VoIP Health. There is the origin, there is the VoIP provider on the left side, there's the VoIP server IP address, and then as you see the trajectory from a security appliance through to ISP, through to internet, and then to the VoIP provider, and we give you an overall rating for that path from a MOS, loss, latency, and jitter. Then your traditional network performance metrics that every provider tracks to ensure that, the VoIP quality is at the level that it needs to be. So number one use case request, why is my VoIP quality poor? Well, we're giving you all the tools, all the visibility you need here, and hopefully that will help you get to the bottom of any issues, hopefully no issues, but if you have, this is your deep dive troubleshooting tool. Today, we're offering this service and this capability on cloud PBXs. We are expanding on that. We will be offering soon also visibility on, or for on-premise PBXs. So we cover Cisco on BroadSoft side, Skype and Teams, and also Ring Central. All right, we are going to wrap up on this side of the update with the Meraki Wireless. So wireless is, for Meraki, has been one of our biggest products over the years. We've been very established, or we've established our presence in the market very well. Our customers love our APs, the different flavors, indoor and outdoor. But also, we've been recognized as a leader in the 2019 Gartner report for wired and wireless LAN access. We're very proud of that as Cisco. And as you see, our position in the leaders quadrant actually demonstrates that. As you can expect, we are also launching, or we've launched Wi-Fi 6 access points this year, including also some of the supporting, or some of the switches that you need to support that extra throughput with MGig to really compensate, to really cover that whole access portfolio. Building on that, not only are we building a product, a set of products that are managed pretty nicely and pretty beautifully from the dashboard, but we're also over the years expanded on our APIs to, in terms of allowing customers to manage these units and really control them at scale. So what that allowed us also is provide this coverage across our on-premise and cloud offering for customers, where customers today can leverage APIs to integrate and have it integrated a single dashboard, managers of manager type solution using Cisco DNA Center. So today with DNAC, you can actually manage your Cisco on-premise devices, but also your Cisco Meraki cloud managed offering. We've also seen Wi-Fi 6 clients going mainstream with Apple iPhone 11, with the different flavors of Samsung, and we're getting into the holiday period. So I'm hoping a lot of you are buying some of these phones. So we're going to see an incredible increase in these devices over the next few months, and hence the need for Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi access points capable devices. That would be it for the product side. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. James McKee.
Thank you, Peter. So this next section we're going to cover off today is really just touching on, I guess, various developments over recent months in the space of API and cloud. So really what we really want to do is try and get people aware of the various resources they have available to themselves to actually upskill in this space, because I guess fundamentally we're seeing a huge amount of growth in usage of APIs, but also the application of APIs to solve interesting use cases in deployments. I guess a couple of webinars that we've actually recently announced are actually in the context of digital transformation with Meraki IO, and also a bit of a how-to technical guide to leverage Meraki APIs to gain value. So there's some dates here that have been set forth for these two webinars. So if this is an area of interest that you have, and we highly recommend you register for these webinar sessions. They're very informative, and typically the way we look to approach these is to provide you with the tools that you can actually leverage to then go and apply these to your own environments, with a focus on learning. So if you actually browse to the meraki.com/webinars URL, you'll be able to register to these and actually attend and look to build out your knowledge in this space. In addition to this, we've been running our Meraki Unboxed series, and there's an interesting podcast episode which is essentially evolving IT experiences with APIs. And this is a fascinating piece of work featuring the lovely Tony Carmichael and team to actually call out how we can actually leverage APIs to build for new solutions or new requirements with our customers and partners. And this is, I guess, demonstrates a new way of actually solving problems with technology. This is an area that I guess has a huge interest in the market. And we're getting, if we look at growth over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge amount of businesses look to go from understanding or even asking what a basic API is to essentially putting APIs to work and actually solving quite complex or problems at scale with the API ecosystem. So highly recommend for those of you that have an interest in this space to attend or listen back on this podcast. Now, for those of you that spent some time recently in maybe some of the various Cisco live events that we run, may have heard that we've recently announced the DevNet certifications. There's a huge amount of interest in the market around this space, and really the whole purpose of putting these certifications together is to enable essentially the industry to, I guess, cope with the transition of leveraging APIs to solve for unique problems, whether that be deploying network infrastructure, monitoring network infrastructure, building microservices from scratch to solve for different unique problems. And what we're really looking to do to help people, I guess, prepare for this and also become more familiar with what it means in the context of network programmability to begin with, is added a whole range of different training components on our API portal. So if you actually look at the API DevNet Learning Hub, you'll notice we've got a couple of different offerings here. We've got the typical ECMS offerings, which I won't focus on today, but the key offerings here essentially around the DevNet certifications. And if you actually click through into the certification program, it actually gives you a view as to what's available, a good approach you could take from a learning point of view to actually get you to an outcome or a base set of knowledge that prepares you for certification. And I guess the certification process has been put together in a way that actually kind of steps you through the basics and then essentially expands on those basics to build a set of skills that you can apply to solving industry problems. We're seeing a huge amount of interest in this space, and we're also seeing, I guess, the community build. And as we'll see in a second, there's a lot of interesting sort of use cases that are being built out to kind of help solve repeatable problems that we're seeing that customers have with their particular deployments. Obviously, as part of building an API ecosystem, In typical Meraki fashion, we're always looking for new opportunities to add new endpoints that provide new value for customers and partners. And a lot of the time we get asked the question, well, where's this information published? How do we get access to this? So looking back to some recent announcements, if you actually look here, we've provided a view of some of the new endpoints we've added and also the context of what they deliver. So to begin with, we can look at, say, the addition of switch quality of service rules from a configuration context, new ability to configure dashboard branding policies, manage and upload and retrieve floor plans, even to device placement on floor plans. Using get and put requests. So you can see from a configuration point of view, we're always adding new capabilities. But outside this, there's also the context of things like monitoring. And one of the, I guess, frequently requested endpoints was the ability to monitor or I guess, call and get back the dynamic DNS host name that's assigned to, say, a WAN interface on an MX. And this is often something that can potentially change, but allows you to actually quickly get a view as to what that is, so you can interface with that as appropriate, whether service configuration changes or whether the needs or architecture within the environment that you've deployed the device is varying. And then finally, we have continually look at opportunities to enhance and change the API ecosystem based on feedback. Obviously, one of the things that we try to continually do is add new value into the platform, but also improve and enhance capabilities that we've provided over time. And one here, for instance, that we've recently added is the rate limit retry alert, which allows us to actually have an understanding if we're hitting the API rate limit, and then allows us to actually enact, say, a function or a pause based on this. So if you're actually interested in this or actually working through particular use cases that would leverage more value from this, recommend you go over to developer.cisco.com/Meraki and then select the What's New menu item on the top right, or you could just browse directly to the What's New tab. And we actually list on a frequent basis all the new API endpoints that we post here. This gets updated very frequently, and it's a great one-stop shop to understand what's happening and what we're releasing out to the market. So some examples now of, I guess, how APIs are being leveraged to solve for interesting problems. One of my colleagues over in Europe by the name of Corey put together this fantastic Meraki switch swapper application, which allows us to essentially, in a very turnkey Meraki style fashion, go and replace a switch in a network. And basically what this really does is allow you via API to determine which organization you want to actually interface with, then actually pick the, say, source and destination switch you want to actually replace, add a new switch from an inventory into the environment, and then basically copy and paste to all the switch config and details between the source switch and the destination switch, remove the old switch from the network, and then return that to the inventory. So it's like a clean transition, and then essentially make this available in a means that's almost foolproof. Anybody can pretty much follow the bouncing ball and achieve the switch swap out. One of the reasons why we're creating these sorts of things is twofold. First of all, to help our customers achieve some of the common functions that they might see in their day-to-day operation of cloud managed networks, but also to actually give them a basis that they can then go and look to build their own use cases on top of. And if you want to kind of understand some of the things that we've actually built out and that we're looking to continue to share with the community, I highly recommend you actually go to the developer.cisco.com Meraki Explore. Now I'm going to provide you just a quick tip here. If you want to actually quickly get to this URL, if you just type meraki.io, that'll redirect you to this URL. So just a bit easier for you to remember than these long URLs. And then that'll take you straight to the developer.cisco.com Meraki URL, and then you can choose just the menu items from the top. But the one in particular that's worth having a look at is Explore. There's lots of interesting new content that gets added here that I think you'll all find useful and quite fascinating. One of the other examples that's recently been developed is, for those of you that may or may not be familiar with Node-RED, this is essentially an API integration with Node-RED that allows us to do drag and drop between many of the endpoints within the org to solve for almost any problem or any particular unique use case that you might want to do. A great example of this, for instance, that I've been using Node-RED for is to take information from, say, a Cisco Meraki MV camera and use that as a means to actually drive other functions, say when I detect a person in scene and things like that. So it's really a framework that allows you to provide a graphical representation of how you can actually stitch APIs together to solve for interesting and maybe different use cases. And you can see here in this brief example here, it actually gives you both a graphical representation of this, but also essentially like a debug view that allows you to actually look at, okay, what's the payloads that we're receiving? What's the information that we might need to actually extract from those payloads? And then essentially, what's the next, say, step we want to use that information for to, say, complete the next action. So it allows us to basically build a whole range of different functions, whether it be developing a network from scratch through to creating a new reporting capability based on a particular, say, event or a situation with a network, all the way through to building, say, a customized version of, say, the dashboard that solves, say, one or two particular use cases that might be useful for, operations or, building some level of efficiency into an existing process. So it's really about getting you familiar with the different ways in which they can be, or APIs can be applied to solve for these problems. So what I encourage you all to do, if you have an interest in this space, or even if you just want to understand what's going on in the API ecosystem, is actually browse over to the Explore tab within the developer site and have a look at all the different use cases that were built out. Many of them have live demos available that you can actually run straight there on the portal. In addition to that, though, there's many that have links to, say, GitHub repositories that you can actually pull code down from, and essentially use those as starting points to build your own solutions to meet a particular need or requirement that you might have. You'll see there from a use case point of view, it's quite easily to click on the drop downs and filter something that you may have a particular interest in as well. I always encourage my customers and partners to look at this as a starting point to see what's already been created, just from a what's interesting, what are other people doing perspective, but also as a means to actually provide a framework for starting and building new services and solutions. So now we're going to just, I guess, pivot over to Meraki Vision, or the Cisco Meraki MV camera, and provide a little bit of an update on what's been happening in that space. So as you're probably aware, the Meraki MV is probably the newest hardware platform that we've released to market. Obviously, that's evolved over the last couple of years to be essentially a very different platform to what it was when it started. And obviously, a lot of that's been driven through feedback from the community, feedback from customers, and really what we're going to cover off now is just some of the great improvements that have been made just recently to make your lives easier when leveraging this platform, but also to deliver new value to customers. So first of all, the whole user experience that customers have when using this platform is continually been improved. We're looking to continue that journey in order to provide a great experience for customers as they grow out their MV deployments. Secondly, we've looked to actually improve the motion visibility and the motion alert algorithms that we have behind the scenes, so we can be more specific about what we detect, and also provide or expose new options for you to customize, say, for more complex use cases in, say, the motion detection context. And we'll kind of touch on that in a little bit more detail moving forward. We've also added some new alert options, which allow us to yet again minimize, I guess, large number of alerts to be specific to, say, particular functions that we're looking to solve for. And one of the areas that I guess I find personally most interesting is the addition of new machine learning models that can, say, detect other things, which is also a common request we see. But I'll touch on these in a little bit more detail as we move forward. So I guess the first piece we're going to call out is the timeline navigation change. So we've really just changed the way in which people can interface with dashboard to change the scope of the area that they're looking to review in the context of video. So you can see here we can actually zoom in and out by just scrolling the mouse or swiping up and down on a touchpad, and we can also move back and forth in a similar fashion, just to save essentially using the plus and minus is the only way to kind of get around. So it provides a bit more of a more fluid motion in building the scope that you're most interested in. In addition to this, motion events is another key area whereby we've seen a huge amount of interest in the market. In order to make it easier for people to find out when motion's actually occurring within their scenes, we're actually now put a motion events timeline bar in the dashboard. So you'll see here, this yellow bar represents periods of time when there's actually motion in the footage. So rather than essentially having to go and do a motion search, you can quickly hover over the events in the timeline, and you'll see here you're presented with a thumbnail which actually shows that event of motion. We can even just click through into to that point in time to actually review that in more detail if necessary as well. So it's really an enhancement to workflow and allows you to find the information that you're interested in a much more effective manner. In addition to this, obviously things like motion recap, which was another recent addition to the platform. We've looked at, well, how can we actually allow customers to identify motion recaps events that are essentially more larger than say, the simple event that we might see. So what we've done now is actually broken these longer queries for, say, larger scopes of time down into 30-second segments, and we kind of stack those so you can quickly click through those and actually find very effectively what it is that you're actually looking for. In addition to this, we've also added the ability to hover scrub. So if you actually hover your mouse over the screen here, you can actually flip through the different motion recap images that you have, by mousing over the imaging dashboard. So it saves having to actually go and click back through all the events that you have, and allows you to kind of yet again improve that whole workflow experience. And these little things, although they look quite subtle at face value, when you're actually building a workflow and use these tools all the time, they actually save a lot of time in aggregate. So there's a lot of effectiveness we'll look to build over time, and we'll continue to do so as we develop the platform. So the workflow piece again, immediate exports or instant exports, another handy piece where on the actual event that you've seen from, say, a motion recap, if you actually have determined that, yes, that is in fact the event that I'm interested in, I don't really want to have to go and drill into that into that scene and watch it in more detail as a playback. I can immediately export that that particular video clip from the motion recap page. So I think if you look at these in total, what we're really looking to do is build enhancements into the workflow to ensure that customers can be very effective in what they're doing. Now, moving forward behind the scenes, there's obviously different things that people put in place to kind of alert on activity when maybe they're not watching a camera or not, say, doing a motion recap or a motion search. And this might is enhanced with the use of motion alerts too. So with this, what we've actually allowed you to do is select more areas of interest to report onto. We've also looked at the metadata that we have in relation to a camera to determine what the likely number of motion alerts we might see for that camera per day into dashboard, just so we can actually start to understand, well, is my alert configuration appropriate for what I'm actually trying to monitor? And we've actually changed or enhanced the ability, as to when you want to, say, turn on an alert, monitor an alert, change the threshold, sensitivity, etc. So it really just starts to actually remove a number of say, false positives you might see from an alert context that you might see in a complex environment. Ensure that you're only seeing the things that you're actually super interested in. And for me, one of the most important additions in the portfolio is the ability to alert only on people events. In many cases, customers suggest they're only worried about events when actually there's an actor in the scene. So really what this allows us to do is kind of suppress or pause all events where there is no people seen in the environment, and then only act on those events where there are people available. So it really, yet again, just provides another filter option to remove out a number of the events that may or may not be useful. An interesting context or tie-in here in the context of APIs, we see a lot of customers build out solutions now where they'll actually look for a particular event based on a person, and then leveraging APIs go and, say, drive another follow-up action. So it actually allows us to essentially build proactive sort of capabilities into customer environments that often take things that are kind of difficult or manual and make them automated and much more reliable. So one of the other items we often get many questions about is like, oh, it's great that we can detect people, but it'd be really handy if we could detect vehicles. So one of the other items which we've added as an enhancement, which is available by MV Sense, which is our camera-specific API, which is an add-on to MV as a platform, is the ability to do vehicle detection. This example here, you can see, has detected not only people in the scene, but also a vehicle in the scene. This is presented in the dashboard in the same way as the vehicle detection, but it's another tab. So you can basically then move from one to the other, and also collect this information in the MVSense context. And then if we look at the actual deployment piece here, and building up floor maps, similar to what you might do for deploying access points, we've also added the ability to place a field of view based on a particular camera model on maps. So when you're actually doing your planning for a camera deployment, you can actually start to see, what is this camera that I have? What's the typical field of view that this camera, based on its hardware configuration, is likely to cover? Have I covered all the areas that I'm looking to cover? And if I was actually looking from an ops point of view, it would give me a quick view as to which camera may I want to actually look at to review a particular event or scene. So it provides a super easy way of getting that visual snapshot of what my camera deployment looks like and whether or not it's effective for the deployment requirement. So that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to hand back over to Peter.
Thank you so much, James. All right, we'll go a little bit closer to every device with Systems Manager. So Systems Manager, as you guys know, guys and girls, this is our mobile device management for our end clients or our customers' end clients. So obviously, a lot of things are changing on the endpoint side, whether, especially on the Apple side. There's iOS 13 that's been announced. There's also macOS Catalina. We've also been, augmenting and increasing our support of features on macOS, basically really trying to get to this feature parity between iOS and macOSs. And Apple is, leading the charge on this. But there has been some, a dozen of new features and preferences that we added on mobile device management on our side, so that we can allow customers to really consume and be able to configure Apple devices, be it macOS or iOS, to actually really use them at scale and manage these configurations at scale. We've added single sign-on extension. Those of you that may not be familiar, but basically there is a single sign-on capability now on iOS and macOS. So through mobile device management on Meraki, you can actually start configuring, things like domains and things like applications related to domains on these two platforms through a more scalable manner through mobile device management. We've had web filters on iOSs for a number of years. We are going to extend that also to cover macOS. And the last, one is really just allowing network drive or USB drives access for iOS devices. What we're looking at here is basically the configuration of SSO for both iOS and macOS. You'll be able now to basically create a custom configuration or specify, some settings for any integration. And that right there is basically the profile or the piece of the profile that you use to configure these types of parameters through the different options. The feature is available today. Now, extending on that, mobile device management has been one of the most popular solutions and products out there in our education market or for education customers, especially schools. So we've been extending on, content filtering support. There's different ways of doing content filtering. You can do it on the network edge, you can do it on the AP, but you can also do it on the endpoint itself. So for iOS and macOS, we're basically offering now web content filter capability, where you can actually do web filtering either on a plugin basis or, on a service basis, based on permitted or blocked URLs, as you can configure, or, you can basically configure it through a third-party plugin. As we said, this feature has been available on on iOS, and we're extending that to macOS now. Extending on geofencing, one of the most popular and one of the first features that we've had on this product. It's actually quite popular for providing policy dependent on locations for clients. So we have had a circular based geofence way of tagging a specific location or a specific premise of your business. We're going to allow two additional levels of flexibility where you can actually customize it based on rectangles. You can define the areas based on rectangles or circular designs. What we're also going to allow customers to do is actually define a better logic or a smarter logic for defining the geofencing alerts. And you'll see here there is a geofence tags portion that's been added to the dashboard, where you can actually write any different logics for assigning or defining the tag first, defining the logic, and then attaching a policy to that policy. That's pretty much it on the product side and the technology side. I'm going to hand over to Shalini here to cover some additional announcements.
Hi guys, so just relating to the recent Meraki incentive on the first year on us. Essentially, it's a promotion that was launched officially on October 1st. So any customer that purchased a new Cisco Meraki cloud management license for 3 years or more gets an additional license at no extra cost. This promo did officially launch on October 1st, but we will be retrospectively allowing customers that had purchased it from July 20th, 2019 to also be eligible. Anyone that did purchase it prior to October 1st will be able to see it on their dashboard by the end of November. This promotion will run through to July 25th of 2020, and it is not applicable to license renewals. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. I guess we have some time to answer some questions. So actually, I do appreciate all the contribution on the Q&A side of the WebEx, and thanks for the help for the engineers as well, the Meraki engineers on the WebEx here. So we'll use the time to cover some of the most popular questions here. I guess the first one is I think we've all received this question at Cisco, but the first one is really what is the difference between a Cisco SD-WAN powered by Viptela and a Cisco SD-WAN offering powered by Meraki. I mean, this is our duty, like I said at the beginning of the webinar at Cisco, to basically cover our market with, or a different market with different needs. So the main differences between the two products, they are basically aimed at solving the same type of challenges for customers, right? They all are trying to provide for allowing customers to consume different WAN options. So providing flexibility on the WAN side, providing a true fabric for our customers to define business policies and performance-based policies to consume the WAN in the most effective and the most business impactful ways. The third one really is the security piece as well. So how do you provide this fabric in the most secure fashion, allowing customers to have the same level of visibility, same level of security intelligence and analytics across the entire network. And the last one is really the visibility side. So how do you do that? How do you have full visibility across all your sites in terms of, alerting, performance, security alerts, all the different types of reporting that you or customers may need. The difference between the two products mainly is in terms of what they're designed for. So one, on the Meraki side, that's your cloud managed offering. It is, the product is designed from the ground up as a cloud managed product. It is targeted for distributed enterprise type deployments, massive scale, your 10,000 site customer, your education customer with so many schools with, a very small IT team looking after it. Perhaps they don't have a security expert team dedicated for the security side, a network team or a switching team. So that's kind of your type of coverage. The other side of Meraki obviously is the full stack nature of the product, where you can have a full site covered by Meraki SD-WAN, Meraki switching, Meraki APs, Meraki, inside as well as security cameras. So basically this full stack, a full site covered by a cloud managed offering. And on our Cisco Viptela side, it's basically the solution where if you have a need for some level of flexibility on routing, for instance, we get sometimes into some routing decisions that we need to make in terms of redistributing BGP routes into an existing IGP, or trying to work across multiple VRFs, for instance, inside VRF, that type of flexibility. I mean, those of you who come from, my age where we have, multi-protocol routing on the ISR back in the days, that's type of, the deployments that we need Viptela in. But our commitment is there to help customers with SD-WAN solutions across the board. So to just wrap up, IT in a shop or single site in a shop, cloud managed, simple, straightforward, all features in a single box. Our MX, that's your Cisco Meraki SD-WAN offering, higher level of flexibility, more customization, and really just that level of flexibility needed. That's Viptela on our ISR. Our commitment is there to support you. So that's the first question. The second question, I guess, we got on. I'm just gonna go quickly to our panel here. What is native? Yeah, so the question is here on supporting SD-WAN on native MPLS. And I guess we went back to the person who posed the question, but essentially we're trying to understand a little bit more. But if we understand the question as we understand it, so SD-WAN as a technology today, not just at Cisco, but across all other vendors, we rely on tunnels, on an overlay type design, where we essentially need to build tunnels across different types of WAN connections, be it an MPLS, open VRF, or an MPLS really closed down VRF, or an internet or a private APN on a mobile network, or just a public APN on a mobile network. We're always going to need to build tunnels across these. The tunnels are needed for multiple reasons, but the first one is really to provide that level of agnostic nature to the WAN, because it really doesn't matter to us and should not matter to our customers what type of WAN is really being consumed. We are elevating the WAN conversation to be a business, a policy-driven conversation. So we are always going to build tunnels across the different types of connections or WAN types. And then over these tunnels, we send the traffic, but also over these tunnels, we do the monitoring based on which we do the policies and we apply the policies and the visibility. We have been increasing our support for the different MPLS designs out there. There is no NAT features that would, feature that we added to cater for some specific use cases. So I guess the point here I'm trying to make is, we are going to support, or we continue to support MPLS. If you have any use case where you need a little more flexibility, please reach out to the Meraki SE team or your Cisco team, and we'll cover it with you on a one-on-one basis. The last question here before we wrap up is on 4G support. So there's been a question about when would Meraki support 4G as a failover to SD-WAN. So we do that today. So a 4G modem plugged into any of our MXs, or a 4G service delivered through the embedded modems in the MX67C and 68CW. The 4G interface is being used today as a failover. So you can use 1.1 and 2 for your business policies. If you get a failure across both links, your 4G is always going to take over. And we continue to monitor that. You'll see it also now on WAN health on the MI. You'll see the signal strength. You'll see also the latency and all the metrics associated. So you can actually monitor better monitor your all the WAN sites. I guess that would be it in terms of questions. There's been also some questions on ECMS1. Please refer to the link that's been posted on the Q&A, meraki.cisco.com/webinars for the sign up page for the upcoming ECMS1. ECMS1 is basically, one of the recent revamps to our training programs. It is about the operation of your network. It just really show you or training our customers and partners how to best utilize the monitoring tools at Meraki to find, the information you need faster. That's pretty much it in terms of Q&A. Anything else on the panel here that we want to share? All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much once again for joining. Please stay tuned. We are going to post this on YouTube, record it. It's already recorded, like I said, in the global. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of your afternoon in Australia, and enjoy your day in APJC. Thanks for joining in. Cheers.